Welcome to Hope Online. My name is Gabrielle. Thank you for tuning in with us today. We are so excited if this is your first time with us. This season, we are going to hearing about people with real hope, both in the Bible, people here at church, and people in the world. We want you to have a confident expectation and desire for something good in the future. During lockdown, the verses 5 to 6 in Psalm 91 really spoke to me. I first heard this psalm at Tribe, which is a group at church for young people. The psalm says, "You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday." This psalm has taught me not to be afraid and not to fear the pandemic that is going on, and it makes me believe that there is hope for the future and that God will always protect us. Coming up on Hope Online, we are going to hear from James Brett on Real Hope. James is a teacher, and with his wife Ellen, they lead our North site. James is also one of our worship leaders and will be joined today by a guest as they bring us a message of hope and encouragement to us. We will also have worship led by Jon Pickett. But before we get into that, we're going to hear from the Lee family on how they have been finding lockdown.
Camera, action.
So you're right, I'm Jordan.
Hey guys, I'm Robbie.
So we're aware that this is the family section of Hope Online. We are 2/5 of our family. The other 3 clearly have something better to do. So you got us today. We're just here to talk to you guys about kind of how things have changed for us in, the last 3 months following everything that's been happening, and how kind of our faith has been grown in those things and how God has been really good to us in those moments. So yeah, both of us were kind of in the middle of kind of quite big things in our lives a few months ago before kind of society kind of grinded to a halt. I was in my second year of college, like a lot of you guys I'm sure. I was studying maths, politics and economics, and then in the space of 2 weeks everything was cut short. We at first thought that the Easter holiday was going to be extended by 1 week, and then Boris Johnson said that night exams are cancelled, so we all kind of had that sense of shock.
How's that been? How has that made you feel? Have you been happy that you don't have to revise, or annoyed?
It's been a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. On the one hand, I'm glad I don't need to study, but then on the other hand, I feel like a lot of people kind of would have wanted to do the exams. I feel like lots of people worked really hard for that, and they would have liked to have felt that what they were given is what they earn.
Yeah, because then I guess you can't control what grade you got or revise hard if you needed to.
Yeah. So while I was in the books, where were you?
So while you were doing your A-levels, I was at school obviously, but mostly practicing diving. I'm a highboard diver, and I was training a lot really.
As everything kind of got kind of cut short, what was the first thing you kind of went to? Was it, I'm not going to be able to train, or the comps are cancelled? Kind of where did your mind first go when it was announced that kind of lockdown was going to...
Yeah, definitely competitions. It was very annoying because in a few weeks I was meant to be going to the national competitions, which is the qualifiers for Junior World Championships and Junior European Championships, which is what I was aiming for about 2 years.
Ages.
Yeah, so it's almost scary because you think all of that hard work just for the competition to be cancelled. So, well, definitely just trusting God in this time of uncertainty, not really knowing when anything's going to open, not really knowing how long we're going to be stuck at home with not enough pasta, so just praying, trusting God and doing what you can do now rather than thinking, hopefully in a month I'll be back, I don't know, at college or back diving. So yeah, that's what I've just had to trust in God and pray.
It's quite a scary place to have your kind of illusion of control kind of just taken away, I guess. And in those moments, you kind of have no choice but to just lean on your faith again.
Yeah.
And when you're kind of so used to, training every single day, working every single day, for it to be like, you don't actually need to do that anymore. You kind of have no choice but to kind of just lean on your faith and go, right, God, this is the work I put in. I have faith that it's going to kind of bear fruit in the way that you kind of call it to be. Yeah.
Hello, my name's John. One of the ways I serve at church is as a worship leader. This is a role that focuses on listening and following God as He guides us to worship Him. It's a wild and amazing honor to worship the living God, knowing that this is an activity that will go on and on into eternity. The song I'm leading today is called As It Is in Heaven, and it spotlights this theme, the now and the not yet of God's kingdom. The song's written by Ben Fielding and Joel Houston, who attend Hillsong Church in Australia, and their songs are sung all over the world. I chose this song because I love music and lyrics that get me thinking, and I love the profound way that this helps us to contemplate our current circumstances in the light of our future hope. This is a song that reinforces that death is not our end, and despite our circumstances, heaven waits for us. It leads us to sing out beautiful truths. I know you love me, I know you found me, I know you saved me, and your grace will never fail me. And it should fill us with hope as we grapple with our understanding and appreciation of a forever in the fearless light of God's glorious presence. As we listen and worship with this song, let it breathe hope into your circumstances, whatever they may be. Let it speak the truth that God is in charge and He's in control over sickness, over injustice, and over every trial we face in this life. We have a hope and a future. And as His people, we get a foretaste of our ultimate freedom in eternity as we worship Him now. Let's sing this together, As It Is in Heaven.
Whether now or then, death is not my end. I know heaven waits for me. And though the road seems long, I never walk alone. And I got all I need to see. 'Cause I know you love me. I know you found me. I know you saved me, and your grace will never fail me. And while I'm waiting, I'm not waiting. I know heaven lives in me. Should I suffer long? This is not my home. I know heaven waits for me. Though the night is dark, heaven owns my heart. I got all I need to sing. 'Cause I know you love me. I know you found me. I know you saved me, and your grace will never fail me. And while I'm waiting, I'm not waiting. I know heaven lives in me. So I will sing like I will there in the fearless light of glory, where the darkness cannot find me, and your face is all I see. Oh, I will sing like a man with no sickness in my body, like no prison walls can hold me. I will sing like I am free, 'cause I know you love me. I know you found me. I know you saved me, and your grace will never fail me. And while I'm waiting, I'm not waiting. I know heaven lives in me. so let it be.
Good morning and welcome to Hope Church. My name is James. I'm part of the leadership team here at Hope, and it's a real pleasure to have you join with us this morning. I just want to take a moment to honour you as a church, as a people, as you've started to gather together in small groups and hearing wonderful stories of community, reconnecting and in person. And I want to thank you so much for your patience. Obviously, we want to be together, but we want to make sure we do it properly. And you've been so wonderful as a body. And we want to thank you so much for your servant-heartedness and for your patience waiting for us to gather together. It's going to be so good when we get back together. But in the meantime, thank you for honouring God, for honouring us as a church, and God bless you in that. I'm going to be sharing with you the next in our summer series, Real Hope is the title. And over the summer, we're exploring the message of hope through different characters in the Bible. And this morning, I'm going to be bringing a character called Ruth to you. And my title for this morning is that there is hope that God has a plan. So, Ruth is one of my favourite characters in the Bible, and you might not have heard of her. She's in the Old Testament, based in the Old Testament, and she comes in a timeline just before David, King David. So, David is the guy that defeated Goliath, and Ruth comes a little bit ahead of him. So, we're quite far back in the Old Testament. And this story of Ruth is a beautiful love story. It's a wonderful reminder of how we can place our hope in God and who He is and what He has for us. Okay, so during the time that Ruth is alive, there's a guy called Elimelech, and he's married to Naomi, and they have 2 sons, and they live in Bethlehem. And there's a great famine, and they decide that they're going to move away from Bethlehem, and they're going to move to a region called Moab, which is ruled by the Moabites. When they get there, Elimelech, very sadly, he dies, but his 2 sons get married. They get married to 2 Moabite women, and one of which is Ruth. And you might think, oh, that's a bit sad way to start the story, but it's okay because everybody's married and it's all live happily ever after. But unfortunately, that's not the end of the story. Not long after they're married, both Naomi's and Elimelech's sons, they both die as well. And so you're left with Naomi, who's a mother-in-law, and these 2 daughters-in-law. One's called Ruth and one's called Orpah. And now what you have to understand is, in this time, that is not a good place to be. As a widow and to be childless was considered to be a social faux pas. It was not okay. It was quite a dangerous place for Naomi to be. She's in a different country away from her family and friends, and she's left alone, and all she has are these 2 daughters-in-law. So she decides that she's going to move back to Bethlehem. She's going to return to Bethlehem where her family are. And so she says to her daughters-in-law, she says, guys, I'm going to move back to Bethlehem. You stay here with your families because they're Moabite women, so they've got family there. You stay with your families, you find new husbands, you get married, you have children. Thank you so much for all your help, but God bless you, but I'm going to go. And both women, both Orpah and Ruth, say, no, we're going to stay with you, we're going to look after you. And that's quite a noble thing for them to say, actually. It's not an easy life, and Naomi knows this. She knows what she's returning to. She knows she's returning to a hardship. And so she says to them, no, you stay here. Thank you so much. You go, you stay here, and I'm going to go. So Orpah at this point goes, okay, well, if that's what you want, then I'm going to stay with my family. And she stays in Moab. But Ruth clings to Naomi, and she actually says in Ruth chapter 1, it says that she says this, do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do so to me, and more also if anything but death parts me from you. Now, a good question to ask at this point is why? Why is Ruth so committed to Naomi? Why does she want to follow her? Why does she choose to go with her? to leave her family behind. So Ruth leaving her family behind, and the language that she knows and a culture she understands, and to go with Naomi into the unknown, into a new country with a new culture, a new society that does not look approvingly upon widows. It would have been a really, it's a really big decision. It's a very powerful moment in the story. Ruth's committing herself to the unknown. She's promising to move to a country that she's never been to. And she chooses to go to Bethlehem with Naomi. And the question I suppose I've asked already is why? Why would she do that? What is it that she sees in Naomi? What does she understand from her? And what she sees is Naomi's trust in God. Now, Ruth is a Moabite. She's grown up a Moabite. She would have grown up following all the Moabite gods. They were very superstitious people. They made human sacrifices. And what you can see here is that Ruth has lost trust in the gods, these kind of idols, the many gods that the Moabites had. They didn't deliver on promises. They were harsh. They were hopeless. There was nothing there for them. But what she sees in Naomi, what Ruth sees in Naomi and her trust in her God, the God of Israel, is she sees hope. And she sees a faith that Naomi has that things will be better with God back in Bethlehem. And so she sticks with her. She chooses in this moment to stay with Naomi, to stay with her. And it's at this moment that Ruth places her trust in God for the first time. What's really important to grasp at this point, what's really important to understand, is that this is the beginning of the story. And so with hindsight, when we read the book of Ruth, we go, oh, that's a lovely story. Isn't it lovely? It's got a happy ending. It does have a happy ending. But at this moment in the story, in Ruth's life, she had absolutely no idea what was going to happen. She had no fixed point to say, oh, this is bad now, but in a few weeks or in a few months, it will be better. Or she doesn't know that. She's committing to stay with Naomi. She's placing her trust, her hope in God with no end in sight. For many of us, the last month have been the most bizarre of our lives. There's been so much unknown. There's been so much uncertainty from one day to the next. Rules come in advance, then they change. There are different expectations. It's really hard to know. And I want to specifically speak to those of you who have been at school over the last few weeks and months. As a teacher, I know firsthand how difficult it's been for students and for children to not be in school, not to be around their friends. If you've been supposed to have been sitting GCSE and A-levels, the last months have been extraordinarily difficult because you were doing exams and then you weren't, and then you were pinning hopes on promised grades, and there's just so much unknown that you've had to live through. And if you're a leaver, for example, if you've been in year 6 or you've been GCSE leaver or an A-level leaver, the concept of not being able to say goodbye properly to your friends, to where you've been studying, that rite of passage of moving on, it can feel really difficult. And it can feel hard in these times to think, well, does God have my best interest at heart? But what we see with Ruth, what we see in her story is, as she steps into the promise or the hope in hoping in God, is we see it come to fruition. And we'll get onto that a little bit later. Ellen, my wonderful wife, and I have been in Winchester for 10 years this month. And it's been a bit of a roller coaster. It's been up and down over that time. But one thing that we know is that God has been faithful to us. He's been with us when we've been in the deep in the valleys and when we've been high up on the mountaintops. He's been with us all the time. And most recently, when we've known that, is when we, as a church, when we went multi-site and we committed to going to North. And when we committed to going to North, it was just us. It was just us as a family, the 5 of us. And we didn't know what it was going to be like. We didn't know what it was going to look like. We didn't know who would come with us, who wouldn't. And in that moment, we didn't know what we were letting ourselves in for. But if anything, over the last kind of 18 months has taught me is that God is faithful, and he has drawn to us some wonderfully faithful people, people who've served their absolute socks off, picking up 2 or 3 teams at a time, serving 2 or 3 times a month, jumping in when they need to, nipping into jobs, getting them done, seeing a need and just filling the gap. And it's been an incredibly powerful time together. We've seen the community grow really close together. We've had visitors come in and see the church, and we've built relationships with the school where we're based. And it's been an incredible time. But when we started at the beginning of this journey, we didn't know what it was going to be like. We didn't know what God was going to do. And so it's been the most amazing season for us, stepping out into the unknown and seeing God come through on his promises. God lives up to the promises that he makes. There's a great illustration, and I'm sure it's been used many times, but I haven't heard it for a long time, so I'm going to use it this morning. And it's the scene from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And if you haven't seen it, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but I'm sure you won't mind me telling you. So Indiana Jones gets to a point in the story where he gets to a crevasse, and it drops down forever. It feels like there's no end to it, and he has to get from one side of this cliff that he's on to the other. And there's, as far as he can see, there's just a drop, and it's too far to jump. He can't make it for a jump. There's no way of climbing across. There's no, he's in a hurry. He's got to get to the other side. And what he knows is that if he steps out in faith, then he'll be safe. And it feels a little. You might think that's a bit strange. So what he has to do is he takes this step out, and as he places his foot down, what actually appears is this camouflaged bridge. And it's a very powerful moment in the story. It's this very powerful moment of realization. But until he stepped out, he didn't know that the bridge was there. He didn't know it existed because it was hidden. And so much of that is true with God. God calls us to step out. He calls us to things, and we don't know the answer. We don't know what's going to happen. And as we step out, he's there waiting. The scariest part of any journey is the beginning. The list of unknowns is unimaginably long. The devil loves to come in and cause fear and anxiety. And the world papers over these cracks with sayings like, oh, it'll be all right. Everything will be all right in the end. Or things like, don't worry, be happy. But the thing with these sayings is that there's not actually any sincerity in what they mean. There's no real truth behind them. There's no foundation to them. Saying to somebody, oh, it'll be all right in the end, but you don't know that it's going to be all right in the end. What's different for us as Christians is when we place our hope and our faith in the same God that Ruth did, is that we place our hope in a God who's never going to let us down. A God who delights in us, whose love for us is greater than anything we could possibly imagine. When God promises something, he will deliver. Our hope is secure in him. Hebrews 12, verses 1 to 3 says this: Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. No race is ever easy. If you can ask, I'm sure, any endurance athlete, marathon runners talk about hitting a wall and struggling to go on mentally. They can't break through. Even when it seems like the odds are stacked against us, we can trust that God, our Father, has our backs. In this passage from Hebrews, we're challenged to run the race that is for us as individuals, set out for us as individuals, not for the person who is sat next to you or sat in front of you on the screen right now. What we're challenged to do is to run a race that is specific to us and what we're going through. I can't run your race for you. You can't run somebody else's race for them. What we can do is we can reflect on our races, and we can identify others and say, oh, I've actually done that bit before. Let me help you through that. Let me share testimony of what's happened to me, what God's done for me through that moment. There might even be points, like for example when we went multi-site, where actually our races align and there are some parts that we run together, and that can be really encouraging. But what's important to remember is that every race has a finish. And as Christians, we run this race knowing that Jesus doesn't ask us to do anything that he hasn't done already. It's his victory on the cross that ensures that when we as we're racing towards the finishing line, and eventually as we cross over it, we win. We win. Jesus shares his victory with all those who choose him. John 3:16 says that all who trust in him, that is Jesus, will not perish, but have eternal life. Take heart, friends, family. We can live lives confident in the knowledge that our victory is secure in Jesus. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 13 says this: "No test or temptation that comes your way is beyond the course of what others have had to face. All you need to remember is that God will never let you down. He'll never let you be pushed past your limit. He'll always be there to help you come through it." I feel like I should have this verse tattooed onto my eyelids. God knows me better than I know myself. I need to surrender to him daily, hourly. Trusting his plan for me is better than what I have for myself. It's when I rest in him that I find peace. By placing my hope in him, I know that he's never going to give me anything that I can't do without him there supporting me. So what happens to Ruth? Ruth's story has a wonderful conclusion. Ruth meets a man called Boaz, who is a wise and prosperous man. Their story is beautifully told in chapters 2 to 4, as both Ruth and Boaz care and respect for each other as they court each other. During this time, culturally, if a husband died, then it would fall to another man within the family to redeem the widow left behind. And in this case, Boaz is Ruth's redeemer. Ruth's faith and hope are rewarded. She marries Boaz and has a son. His name is Obed, and you might not have heard of him, but you've definitely heard of his grandson. His name was King David. Ruth becomes part of the lineage of Jesus. Throughout all that Ruth had been through, she learned that trusting and hoping in God brings redemption, peace, and joy. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing as you watch or listen to this, know that God is for you. He knows you better than you know yourself. He loves you more than anything else. And his love for you is more than you could possibly imagine. No matter how far away you feel, how disconnected, how broken, whether you feel like you're at the start of the journey or whether you're halfway through, whether it's been easy in the last weeks and months or really difficult, there's no mountain too tall, there's no gap too wide that God cannot overcome for you and with you. Open your heart to him this morning and he will meet you. He'll meet you where you are, because Jesus is the hope that will never let you down. Earlier, I spoke to Chris Taylor, who attends Hope Church. We sat and chatted through some of the things that have affected him over the last few weeks and months during lockdown. Let's hear Chris's story. Chris, thank you so much for joining with us. So lockdown hasn't been the easiest time for you. Do you just want to share with us what's been going on?
Well, to be honest, it's been quite a roller coaster. If I think back to February, I remember having my annual appraisal and we were talking about promotion. And then in March, some people were let go, and then I was safe, and I went into lockdown thinking I was going to be okay. And I was sitting on my couch with my wife, Jenny, and we had a company announcement and basically said that coronavirus has really had an effect on the business and there's going to be a lot of redundancies. And to cut a long story short, I was on that list. Mm-hmm. So, and I wasn't expecting it. I've been there for 7.5 years.
Yeah.
So it was unexpected. And at that point, you start thinking, what's going to happen next?
Yeah. And where did you, obviously, when that happens, there's this, we have to start asking ourselves these questions of, what's going on? God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right, where were you in this journey with God? When that happened, obviously you have a instant reaction, but where was God in this for you?
Well, being at home, I mean, I was furloughed, so I was actually off for 13 weeks. It sounds painful just saying it because that's a long time to be home when you're used to going out to work. But I found it an opportunity to spend time with God, which I wouldn't normally get. And so that was... People have a habit, don't they, of falling on God when things get difficult.
Yeah.
It's like a default mechanism, isn't it? And I think that's what happened. The fact that I was going to lose my job and my career and lose friendships at work and all those kind of things was a big thing, and therefore I just started talking to God about it, really.
Yeah. And so, or through all this time, obviously, you have the stresses of, potentially losing income and all those other things. Was there, but you've talked there about, falling on God. Did he catch you? Did you feel like he caught you? Were there little glimpses of moments where you felt God with you? Like how did he know that? How did you know that he was with you?
Okay, so I sat on the couch on something like the Tuesday or the Wednesday, and on the Thursday the phone rang, and somebody offered me a job.
Wow.
Now I know that not everyone is going to be in that situation, but you can imagine it was a big. Just a relief, I suppose.
Yeah.
Took some of the pressure off. And it was with people that I knew, I trusted them, and I knew the business, etc. So in that respect, it was really good. But I am very conscious that not everybody is in that situation. And I should mention, by the way, that having lost my job, that my wife also lost her job at the same time.
Wow.
So that and she's now also managed to get herself another job. So that's been great for our family.
How does that, you have the dynamic of both of you losing. How did that affect you in terms of, I know you and I know that actually it's drawn you together in this, in God, but could you just share what did you go through? What kind of things did you do together? How did you work this through together with God?
Well, on a practical level, started doing a lot of walking. I actually walked every day through lockdown, and we started walking together, and I guess the opportunity to talk about stuff helps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And we were just aware of the need for God to help us at that time.
Is there something that you would like to encourage people with? Is there something that's stuck with you that you think if you're in this situation, it's okay, like things are all right? Is there something you could share with people that would encourage them?
If you're watching this and you don't know where your job is coming from at the moment, I've just got a few things to really try and help you. Things that have helped me in my Christian life. So the first thing is that God doesn't always speak immediately, but he always speaks eventually. And so I found that helpful to hang on to.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's really important to say that God sees you right now. He sees your circumstances. You're not hidden from him. And he's got this, and you can trust him. And the third thing, which I've found the hardest, but one of the most influential things that anyone ever said, it's a chap called Graham Cook, who's a prophetic guy who used to be based in Southampton. He said that timing is more important than time to God. So we have this natural tendency to want release from our circumstances now.
Yeah.
And that's not always the way that things happen. And so that timing thing is about trusting God that he's got it. And so if you are in that situation, those are the things that I would share with you.
Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing with us. It's an incredibly powerful story and so uplifting and encouraging to hear from you. Thank you to you at home for joining with us and Hope Church Online. It's such a pleasure to have you joining with us. And don't forget, you can connect with us on social media and join us every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock on YouTube. God bless you.
Bye.